Alright, welcome once again to another episode of the Poncho's Paint Booth, where we do hobbies and models and painting, and the like. Real quick before we get started, of course you can like and subscribe to this channel, or this playlist I should say, on Multi-Murdy Media here on YouTube. Also, check me out on, or follow me on Instagram and Facebook, same name, Multi-Murdy Media. You'll get, and anyways, here on YouTube, you'll get this channel, or this playlist, Poncho's Paint Booth. You'll also get the Gutsy Ass Gamer playlist, and you'll get my podcast, Jankety Ass Podcast, which, if you just want to hear it instead of see, you can also check it out everywhere you get podcasts. And, what else? Oh yeah, also, if you go into the show description here on YouTube on this video, go to all my links, and you will see a you'll see a couple things. You'll see my Warhammer Amazon wish list, which is public, so anybody can get in there and get me some stuff. If you want to buy a model for this show, I'll paint it up, make it look cool, and I'll give you a shout out. At the same time, I also have my music Amazon wish list, which is more to support the podcast, since I do a CD haul segment in there every once in a while. And again, I'll feature it, give you a shout out. Right. So what we're gonna do now is, we're gonna get into the 40k Necron range, which is here I'll show you. We're gonna start with the Necron Warrior. So these are the basic dudes. Whenever this thing gets in focus, maybe. Basic dudes, there we go. They basically look like robot skeletons, and in the story and game, or lore, I should say, they're basically mindless servants. And the idea of the Necrons is that they used to be a flesh and blood race of humanoids, but they managed to they did a thing called biotransference, which they managed to transfer their consciousness into machines. And most of them's like the warriors here, they're a servant class. They basically just do what they're told. And then some of the more noble class and stuff like that, like the lords and overlords and such, they still have, their personality and free will and yada yada yada. But anyways, these are the basic guys, and these models are from the newly updated range. Actually, these are the only ones that are updated, but there were a lot of new models in the Indomitus box set, and that includes these guys. And I figure it's fitting to start with the basic troops first, which I actually have about 40 of these guys, but obviously I'm not going to do that many for the show. We're only going to do these 5. Now, to start off with, for their base color, we're going to use steel gray. So that's kind of it's a lighter blue, but it's like a grayish blue. And that is going to go on, well, except for the shoulder pads here, that's going to go on all of the the solid body parts. So you'll see that there's a lot of spaces where there's joints, or like the spine and stuff like that. It's not going to go on that. It's just going to go on like the upper arms, the forearms, the torso, face, and parts of the legs and feet. Now, I got a bunch of these guys to do, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, base color down. So now, let's see, we don't need this anymore. What's next is I'm going to apply some of our Drakenhof Nightshade, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently from what we've done before. Instead of just covering the whole model in this stuff, what I'm going to do, and it's a little hard to see right now, but kind of all over their body and stuff, well, especially the ribs, there's recesses there, but there's also like a bunch of dents and stuff kind of all over the place. Not to mention where in a lot of these guys, like the face is kind of coming apart a little bit, because the idea is that these bodies, I guess, are, you know, millions and millions of years old, and they basically just kind of been in, you know, shutdown mode and crypts and stuff for the whole time. But what I'm going to do is for those little spots, like I said, instead of just covering the whole thing in shade, I'm just going to hit those little dents. And, well, let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so that is all the dents and the cracks and the fun stuff on these models done. And the idea was that what I really want to do with these guys is I want to preserve this blue color that I have on them. I am going to be dry brushing some other stuff on here, but it's going to be slightly different. So we're going to let this the bit of shade that we put on here dry, and then we'll come back in a minute. Alright, moving on with our warriors. As you can see, we got the blues done, and some a little bit of shade work on their the main body. So now we're going to go ahead and finish the primary colors. And to do that, what I'm going to do is we're actually going to dry brush with our scorpion green over the blue. And what that's going to do is it's going to give like this green hinge to pretty much all the edges and real sticking out parts of the model. It's an interesting look, and it seems like unnatural, but it works well. And instead of trying to convince you, I'll just go ahead and show you. Actually, let me get this cleaned off. So as you can see, we added some green. Mix the green and blue, and it gives us a real. Actually, let me try turning the light off. It gives us a real interesting highlight sort of going on where, and it's kind of hard to focus on. It gives it a real ephemeral effect, I guess. And it kind of mocks like the incident angle style of painting, like I've been doing with like I've done with the Turbo Dork paints that I have. But instead of being, all shiny and stuff, this just gives us a different coloration on the skin. So, well, these guys don't really have skin, but on the armor and stuff. So what I'm gonna do now that we're done with that is we're gonna start moving on to some of the more mechanical parts. So that would be like the spine and all of these joints and the back of the head here. Not the gun. I'm leaving that for later. And to do that, we're going to use the rough iron color. It's kind of like a really dark oxidized metal. And that will... Let's see. So yeah, we're going to do that, and then we're going to go over those sections with, where is it? The Agrax Earthshade, which, like, brown over, well, brown cessed areas. And then later on I'm going to dry brush a lighter color over them, but, that's going to be later. So for now, we're going to do the rough iron and the Earthshade, and we're going to see, let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Alrighty, so that's the base of the metallics done, and we already did the outside armor / skin on these guys. So like I said, you can see that the Earthshade wash over the what was this called, the rough iron, doesn't really show up yet, but again, we're going to be dry brushing over this with some other stuff soon. But for now, we're going to go ahead and let these dry, and we'll come back in a minute. Alright, so the wash on the Warriors is dry now. On the back, well, you can't really see anymore, obviously, because, well, it blends in pretty well. So now what we're going to do is a couple things. First, on all these metallic parts, like the spine and the joints, I'm going to dry brush on true copper. That's basically, well, it's the darker copper. It's kind of like the brass that I've been using in the Mechanicus range, but darker. And that's going to be dry brushed over all of these, the parts that I have the rough iron paint on to, give it a highlight. And then I'm going to do the same with electric blue over the gun here, which is going to be sort of the color scheme for all my other Necron stuff coming up for, like, not for their actual bodies, but for components that are more like constructs, so like the guns, and then later on when I get into vehicles and canoptic models, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be black with electric blue dry brushed. So let's go ahead and pull my stuff up here again. Get started with that. Right, no more dry brushing. So that's all that stuff done. Let me clean up and I'll show you a little bit closer here. So as you can see, we got a little bit more highlight in the mechanical parts underneath. And we've got these nice blue highlights all over the gun. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to just regular fill colors, kind of. So we're going to get, well, not first, kind of in the middle, we're going to get a head start on the bases by putting down a layer of cold gray over it. That's kind of our, not the darkest gray, but a more muted gray. And then I'm going to start with the glowing effects. It's going to be plain white, and that's going to go in these the coils of the guns back here, and then also just the whole barrel of the guns as well. So that's going to be, white. It's going to take a couple layers, and then on top of that, I'm going to add in our Hex Wraith Flame technical color, and this kind of gives a nice green glowy effect in there, which you will see, well, in a minute here. Okay, just about done with this portion. Got the white or the white base down on the guns, as well as a start on the bases, like I said I was going to do. So now we are going to apply the glow effect real quick and see what that looks like. So once again, that's our Hex Wraith Flame technical paint. It's closer to a shade, but not exactly the same because it doesn't actually darken the areas that it hits, and it's not, well, it works differently, as you can see. So yeah, we got a nice glow there. And then of course same on the coils. And with these warriors, they don't really have a lot of this, but some of the bigger models, which you'll see real soon actually, they have a lot more areas that need the glow effect. Not bad. Nice. Let's go ahead and do up the other ones real quick. Okay, there we go. Guns are done, glow's done. Most of this model's done. I just have a few small details left on these guys. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and let this glow effect dry. And we will come back to these guys in a moment. Are you listening to this show and thinking, man, I'd like to start a podcast, but I don't even know where to start? Well, Buzzsprout has the answers for you. Buzzsprout is a podcast hosting service that provides a number of valuable resources to help you on your podcasting career path. For one, Buzzsprout offers indefinite hosting of all your episodes and allows you to host as much material as you want, depending on the type of subscription that you opt for. Buzzsprout also provides a means for getting your show hosted to every major podcasting platforms such as iTunes, Pandora, Spotify, you name it. In addition, Buzzsprout also provides various means to get your show monetized through various sponsorship and affiliate programs, links to other paid hosting platforms such as Patreon and YouTube, and your own personal newsroom to learn all the tips and tricks for optimizing your podcast for the greatest return on your investment. If you're hearing all this and you're still interested, you can go to my link below and receive an Amazon gift card for starting a podcast hosting subscription that you'll receive on the second billing period of your podcast journey. Everyone has something to share, and there's no time like the present. Join Buzzsprout today. Alright, let's keep going with the Warriors. So what we're going to do now, as you can see, those glowing effects dried up pretty nicely. And they're nice and green and glowy. Yeah, there you go. So, what we're going to do now, a couple things. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to handle, you might notice, kind of all over the model, like especially hanging under the guns, but then also kind of in their abdomens. You can't really see it that well. There's a bunch of cords and pipes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to handle like the rib pipes. Those are going to be done with ash gray. And then hit with our fancy Null oil. And then I'm going to do up kind of some of the more fancier elements here. The shoulder pads and the insignia that they have on their chest, that little sternum piece. That's going to be done up with our turbo color radium. And this is another one of those incident angle reflective paints. And it basically goes from kind of like a dark fool's gold sort of looking color, and reverts to almost black whenever the angle is greater on your vision. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and we're going to start on the pipes first. Okay, so as you can see, we got that nice radium color down, and it is a little bit hard to see on an area so small, but you can kind of tell, like, as I rotate, the color shifts as the angle of vision grows greater. So like right there on the edge, it's that nice close to gold color, but then as it goes back, it kind of goes into more of a little bit of a greenish black type of deal. But anyways, that's what that looks like. And this is going to be, you're going to see this more on some of the other Necron models that I have coming up in the future, that they have, well, bigger shoulder pads. But now, what we're going to do, let's go ahead and do the Nuln Oil real quick. That's going to go on all of these pipes and stuff. Alright, easy peasy. Got that done. So, almost everything on the model is done. There are a couple of there's some exposed wires that I still have to make a color for and actually figure out a color for. I never really quite did that. But now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do some more stuff on the base. You've seen me use this stuff before as the rough gray pumice ground texture, and that is going to give us a nice layer of dirt to help with the texture that I'm going to put in afterwards. This is going to be like a rocks and snow is kind of the idea. So, well, yeah, you already seen how this works with the fiends, so I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it. We got some pumice down. And as always, we gotta let this stuff and the black shade that we did on the piping, we gotta let it dry off. And also, as you'll remember, whenever I use this stuff on the fiends in the previous video, whenever this pumice dries, it starts to, well, it gets translucent in some cases, or not translucent, transparent. So it'll match the underlying color more and become darker and more gray, which is what we want because we need some more contrast later when I start adding in the snow. But again, that's going to be later. So for now, alright, last step, it is time to finally finish off these warriors. So, well, the first thing I want to point out is I believe I mentioned that I was going to finish up the dirt parts of the bases off camera, which I went ahead and did. Whoops, yeah, they're tough, they can take it. But, so yeah, I let the pumice texture dry, and I went ahead and dry brushed on the ash gray to get the highlights out, and then cleaned up the edges on the base, which, you know, like I said, I did that off camera because I literally just did that same process with the last video. You know, why bombard you with the same thing already? But what we're going to do now is new. So first, I may have called your attention to, there's a bunch of smaller pipes and stuff. Oh, I got a bubble in my throat all of a sudden. There's a bunch of smaller, not pipes, wires and stuff. Namely, one big one, or actually, yeah, there's one big one on the gun, and then there's some other smaller ones that you can't really see that well, but they're hanging out of their stomach or abdomen region. Where's this one? Yeah, this guy right here. He's got a bunch that are kind of unattached that are hanging out. And for that, what we're going to do is we're going to fill those in with pure red. That's a nice bright red. Gives us a nice bit of extra contrast. And then, something that I have not done yet, or not shown you guys yet, is we are going to make these bases into partial snow bases. And for that, that is going to use the Vallejo snow ground texture. Now this stuff, it goes on pretty much the same as the pumice, you know, kind of wet, but then it, what's the term, like it coagulates and sticks to your brush, so you get a nice rough texture. And the nice thing about this is that you literally don't need to do anything with it after that. It'll just look like snow. And, yeah, depending on how thick you put it on, it'll kind of, clump together as it dries, so you might see a little bit of the ground underneath. Or if it's nice and thick, you won't get that effect. But either way, you know, just applying that will be... no, actually, let me get it out of the way of the camera here. I'll put it over here. For now, we're going to start with the wires. And I need my smaller detail brush somewhere. So, here we go. Little brush. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so we got the wires done. And you might also notice that I realized that this would be a good time to also do up the eyes with this color. Let me see. This is the one. He's got one of his eyeballs hanging out there. Yeah, there you go. So just a little red pinprick going for the eye. Sorry, I'm getting hiccups all of a sudden. But anyways, so the red, we're good on the red now. So now it's time to get into the snow stuff. And where is that brush? Here we go. So I'll show you. It's pretty much the same as the pumice stuff. Actually, you can't even really see from here. If I turn off the light, I wonder if. Let me see if I turn off this light. There we go. So you can kind of see the sort of texture that it's going to have. Maybe, well, you know what? Screw this. I'm just going to go ahead and get my camera all situated again. Be easier if I just went ahead and showed you what this is going to look like. So move these guys to the side, and then we just take a nice glob of this stuff and just slather it on. Get it all. Cover up some of the nooks and crannies. Don't need any along the side. And there you go. It's nice and bright. It looks like what snow should look like. I mean, if you ever, I don't know if you ever go outside on like a sunny day when it's snowing, like you can't really see the texture here that much, at least through the camera, because the light's shining directly on it. But that's what snow looks like, you know, in the sun. So this stuff is perfect, and it's definitely easier than like any kind of sprinkle on dust texture effect, which would just be too much. That's why these texture compounds are so nice. Let's go ahead and do the rest of these. Alright, that is it. The Necron Warriors are all finished. Don't need this out anymore. So let me get cleaned up here and I'll give you a little bit of a better view. Just got a couple out here. So as you can see, got a nice snowing effect all over my fingers too, apparently. But on the bases, yeah. So, and like I said, once that dries up, it does kind of draw away from itself just a little bit. So some of the dirt will show through a little bit more, but for the most part, it'll still be like this nice fluffy white stuff. And then, of course, you know, all the progress that we did on the actual model itself. Now, the fun thing is I have about 35 more of these guys to do up at some point in the future, but that's not going to be on camera. You won't have to see that. So anyways, yeah, we did it. That was the Necron Warriors. That's another episode of Poncho's Paint Booth in the can for you guys. And of course, obviously, if you're watching this, you're watching this on YouTube. So if you go down, like and subscribe to Multi-Murdy Media, you'll get Poncho's Paint Booth, which you're watching right now. There's a bunch of videos that are already there, and I got a ton more in the works. They'll be coming out eventually. Normally every week on Thursdays, or sometimes I skip a week, depending on how we feel. But I will schedule it for Thursdays. And then you'll also get the Gutsy Ass Gamer playlist. That is my video games and Twitch stream. Right now I'm mainly playing Fallout 4 for you guys in survival mode, so it's a hard one. And you'll also get the video version of the Jankety Ass podcast. That's my podcast with me and my buddy Tom now. And that's pretty much about, whatever else we decide. It's about everything. Everything and nothing. If you prefer to listen instead of watch, you can find the Jankety Ass podcast on every major podcast platform. iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, yada yada, you name it. It's there. Also, look up Poncho's Paint Booth, or not Poncho's Paint Booth, Multi-Murdy Media on Instagram and Facebook. You'll get all the updates for when new shows come out. Usually within a day or two is when I put it up, because, I'm doing everything myself here for the most part. And if you go down, you'll also find a couple of, if you go down to the All My Links page, down in the show description here, you will also find in there's a couple of Amazon wish lists that I put up. One of them's a 40k wish list that directly supports, or not a 40k, Warhammer wish list, because there's some other AOS stuff in there too, but that directly supports this show because it gives me, more content to work on. And if you do decide to get something off of there for me, you get a shout out too. And maybe I'll work out like some kind of what's the word? Like maybe I'll do like a paint scheme that you want, depending. But most likely it'll just be something cool that I think of. And there's also a music wish list in there too. That's all CDs that, I'm interested in. Obviously, it's like a little gift for me, but it also gives us even more content for the podcast if you're into that, because one of our major topics is metal. And, it's nice. And sometimes I'll review albums that are either old or new, depending on what they are, obviously. So anyways, as always, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.